What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to talk about Ben Milliken's Hangover by 6 Sense, and I'm going to show you guys some modifications to make it perform better and catch more fish. As you all know, this thing right here had a lot of hype behind it, but it didn't perform the way people thought it was going to perform. It didn't swim right. It had that little weird death roll action. Well, today I'm going to show you guys how to fix that so you can slow roll this bait and still have it swimming perfectly straight. And also a few more modifications to make this thing even more better than what it already is. Now, Ben Milliken put out a video on how to fish this properly, and basically you just have to reel it a little bit faster than normal. But if you're like me and you like throwing a mag draft, you like that slower retrieve. So today I'm going to show you guys how to make this lure easier to retrieve at slower speeds. So as you guys can see, this one right here is the standard straight out of the package, and this one right here to my right is the one that I have started to modify, and as you can tell, the tail already has a lot more flexibility to it. And also, if you look at it horizontal, you can see that the tail actually droops just a touch lower. So in return, that makes it a lot more malleable, a lot more flexible. But we're going to get to that towards the end of the video. First, I got a couple quick tips about this thing for you guys. The first tip is, if you look at your Hangover, the bottom, you actually have another hook point or a line tie. We are actually going to slap a treble hook on that thing to make the hookup ratio just that much better with this thing. So what I like doing is grabbing some split ring pliers, the one with the little hook, to open a split ring on this and simply slide it on there. I like a number 2 or bigger for this, and it just makes it a whole lot easier to get a better hookup ratio, because sometimes those fish come up underneath. Now, this does take away the advantage of having a line through swim bait, but you also have a slightly better hookup ratio. Unfortunately, it is not as weedless as the top hook design, but as you guys can see, nice little hook down there, solid keeper. The whole harness is actually inside of this thing, and it's very, very strong. The second tip I have for you guys is a nail weight, in particular a tungsten nail weight. This out here is actually an 1/8, but there's some companies that make it up to like a 3/16, which will actually help you get that bait down there deeper and help it track more true, and it will also help when you try to slow roll this bait. But there's a particular place you need to put this in order to avoid the harness and keep the swim bait swimming straight and true and not having it out of balance. Alright guys, so we have our Hangover here that we have the hook on. We're going to go over how to place this nail weight, and all you're going to do is you're going to come into the back and we're going to flip open these fins here. And as you can see, right there is the end of the harness for the line through. What you're going to do is, you can kind of see that nail weight right there. You're going to kind of come underneath that harness, and what you're going to do is you're going to kind of run it down about like this right here. You want to run from that dorsal fin just behind the hook tie right there, because that harness actually comes back just a little bit. And I like an 1/8 on this because it is, I feel like it's more balanced with an 1/8, but the main thing is you want to keep it straight and run it at a slight angle to keep that weight in the center with the bait. So I got this translucent one right here with my 1/8 ounce nail weight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the fin open. I'm going to place it right behind where the line through is. I'm going to angle it to where I know I'm not going to hit that harness, and you want to keep it as straight as possible. And that is how you do the nail weight into the Hangover. Now, doing it on more translucent baits makes it a lot easier, because I can actually tell I was straight the whole time. The hook point is actually dead center. You can see the angle that I was talking about from the dorsal fin to the hook keeper, and just in all, that is about a perfect way you can run the nail weight into the Hangover. Alright guys, we are here in the house for our next tip, and I got to thinking about this, because what we usually do with like frogs, for example, is we'd either leave them out in the dashboard of our truck or bull them to soften them up so it's easier for a hookup ratio for the bass to get. So I started thinking about the Hangover Swimbait, and I was like, man, wouldn't bulling help? So that's what I done, and it actually worked. That's what we're going to be doing. We are going to be bulling the Hangover shad. Now, what I'm going to say is, do not bull it too long and have it at a semi-rolling bull. I don't know exactly what they call it, but I will show you guys exactly what to look for when you're bulling the water, and how hot you need it and how long to keep it in there and everything. But there's a few things you need. Obviously, stove, pot to put your water in, boil your water. But the most important things are the clasp that comes in with the Hangover and some forceps, because you don't want to burn your fingers. Seems fair enough to me. Alright guys, so this right here is pretty much what you want. You don't want like a big bull. I can probably turn it down just a touch. But you want something like that. Good little rolling bull. And now we're going to go ahead and get our swim bait ready and dunk it. Alright, so we got our forceps. And what you're going to do is you're going to attach it to, let me make sure I'm in frame here, the bottom hook eyelet on the swim bait. So just letting you know, your hands will get warm. And I typically like a minute and a half, 2 minutes max. I'm still playing with this part of it, but I typically stay about a minute and a half. So all you're gonna do is dunk it in there, make sure it's fully submerged. Now another thing I like to do while I'm boiling this swim bait is I like to keep it moving a little bit, just to help with the flexibility and make that plastic a little bit more malleable. I do not know if this affects the durability of the bait. I know this thing is supposed to be fairly durable. I do not know if it affects the durability of the bait. I haven't caught enough fish on it to tell you guys if it does or not, but I feel like it does help with the swimming action. Actually, I know it does help with the swimming action. You can reel it a little bit slower. I'd say probably around the 30%, somewhere around there. So it actually helps out quite a bit. That was the biggest problem with this swim bait. If you didn't buy the fast sink version, it was hard to get it to swim properly. But once we take this out, you immediately want to put it back in the clasp, the clamshell that it comes with, and let it cool. Alright, so make sure all the water is off of it. As you guys can see, that thing's like laying over already pretty good. So it's nice and warm. We're going to lay it in our clamshell. Make sure I'm staying in frame. And then we're just going to close it up. If I don't drop it and burn it. Close it up. Snap it up. And let it sit until it cools off. Alright guys, so now I'm going to roll some footage of the swim baits that we had. One of them was before we bulled it, and the other one was after we bulled it. So you'll get to see how much easier it is to retrieve. I don't know how great it turned out because I filmed it on my chesty and just some clear water. But guys, I promise you it's 20 to 30% easier to swim this thing now. I feel like the tail is actually probably 20 to 30% more malleable. So let's take a look at that footage. Alright guys, so I want to apologize for all the road traffic, but this is the one that I've modified. The tail is actually a little bit more flimsy. We're going to give it a little swim test. Alright, and now for the one that I haven't modified yet. See, I already tell I have to move it a lot faster for it to get to swim. So with the bulling and the modifying and everything, it's a lot more consistent. And I feel like I can retrieve it a little bit slower and actually work that bait a little bit better. Alright guys, so what do you guys think? Do you think it helps? Personally, I think it does. So I'm going to continue to do this with my hangovers. I know that they do have a problem swimming. Like I mentioned, you know, a lot of people were upset about how this hangover deal went and everything. So just trying to spread some information on modifications and, you know, little hacks you guys can do with these line through swim bait. I do think it's a good product. I do wish it was like a little bit softer, but that's why we boiled it, to help out with that. And that way you could slow roll this bait a little bit easier. But I hope you guys enjoyed these tips, all these modifications. that I showed you guys. If you did, please hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, catch 'em big.